What up, guys? Justin here of Justin Speaks in Tongues language learning channel. And in this video, I'm going to talk about a kind of new project that I'm going to be working on related to Spanish specifically. So the languages that I have studied to some degree have been modern Greek, which was the highest. It was the highest language that I had. Spanish has since, I believe, overtaken that. Spanish, obviously. Koine Greek is another one. I've briefly delved into ancient Greek, which is different than either modern or Koine Greek. I've also studied Hebrew, Latin, Welsh, and I believe that's about it. I might have just looked at a few other languages, but nothing that I studied on any kind of ongoing level. But one thing that I've often used throughout that process has been LingQ. And if you watched one of my last videos that I made, LingQ fits well into the interlinear translation method that I have predominantly used and advocated for. It's not translation, but interlinear reading. So an interlinear text is where there is an intermingling of the target language that you're reading from with your native language, or at least a language that you understand well, line by line in that. So you would have one line of English, and in this case, you would have one line of Spanish, and in my case, since English is my native language, you would have a line of English directly below that that is a translation. Well, I think LingQ does a great job in that you can have that. You can actually use it on sentence mode and translate. But this kind of goes into something that I've seen a lot of people doing. I like Evil Dia, and I think he's done a good job with his project and his 1,000-hour Dreaming Spanish project. And that's kind of where I'm going with this, is that I want to do something similar with LingQ and just see what my results are with it compared to his. The only problem with that is that I don't want to take on a new language right now. I've studied enough languages, and I'm not really interested in any other languages. Um, so I do want to learn Spanish though, and I'm approximately, I have the numbers in my notes here, but I'm about 500 hours into it, so I'm already halfway there. So that is the issue, and that's the problem with that. I'm not sure exactly where my level is with Spanish, so I'm going to take a test probably through AI. I'll probably ask AI to give me a speaking test and then do that, but so many of you have probably heard of like the 1,000-hour Dreaming Spanish challenges that not just Evil Dia, but a number of people have done. And I want to take a different approach with that. Instead of Dreaming Spanish, I want to make my primary tool LingQ and do something similar. Unlike many language YouTubers that are floating around, unlike many of them, Evil Dia actually has a full-time job and a family, and somehow he manages to spend like 4 to 6 hours a day on Spanish. So I don't understand that because I don't have that. But like many of you, I have a full-time career, so I'm not able to dedicate that kind of time into doing language learning. So can an ordinary working adult reach an advanced level of Spanish within 1,000 hours by using LingQ as their primary tool? So I have some screenshots. I'll post those as a post if you want to see those separately. But I'm going to do that. So the things that I'm going to post will include, one, an update of where my current level of Spanish is at around 500 hours. And then I'll post my actual like statistics. How many words have I read? So I believe it's over 500,000 on LingQ. So I have time outside of that I'll post as well. And then I also want to post where my current level is. So I'm 44 years old. I'm a full-time city police officer in a pretty large, high-crime metropolitan city. So we have frequent high-crime areas. I'm not sitting in a parking lot waiting on calls to come in. There are days where our board, as far as the calls that are on it for service, for us to go out to somebody's house because they called the cops, never gets below 20. I come out of roll call with over 40 calls on the board, and sometimes those require full police response. So there's shootings, stabbings. These in the city that I work in, unfortunately, happen on a daily basis. Somebody getting shot, somebody getting stabbed. And the reason I say that is because if I worked for a smaller police jurisdiction, maybe there is this opportunity where you can sit in a parking lot and kind of play on your phone for a while. So they might be able to learn full languages while sitting in a parking lot somewhere. I don't have that luxury. I am running call to call to call from the time I log in, usually until I go home. So, work is not a time where I can use for language learning. So I'm a full-time police officer. I'm married. I have a wife and children. I only have one child left at home who's actually graduated high school. She's 18 or 19 years old. So, I'm not like dealing with little kids. So that would actually be an added pressure if I had that. But I do have children that require my time still. And the reasons that I'm learning Spanish are for travel. We're going to Puerto Rico in a couple months. I'll probably, I live in Ohio, so at some point I'm going to be probably going to Mexico again. Someday I would like to visit Spain, although they've had a lot of political issues lately that make me not particularly interested in going to Spain at this time. But if they can get their immigration and issues under control, that would be a nice place to visit for cultural and vacation purposes. But right now, there's Puerto Rico. I can appreciate some of the things that President Bukele has done with El Salvador. It makes it a very desirable and wonderful place to want to visit. Because of that, Argentina is obviously a wonderful place. So places where they have good political structures that have made the environment safe and promotes the historic culture of those people, like, as I've already mentioned, such as El Salvador and Argentina. But Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, so that makes it an easy and desirable one for me personally. But anyway, so those are great places. So travel, personal enjoyment, Spanish television from across the Spanish-speaking world, as well as historical Spanish literature are, good things. And then I take reports in Spanish as a police officer, even now at my current level. So listening and understanding what people are trying to say, and then using the Spanish that I know to respond to them. So I'm not a low level in Spanish. I'm like that B1, B2. No, I'm not quite to B2 level yet. I'm reading at a B2 level now, and that's just slightly above my area. So I would guess I'm somewhere around a medium B1 level, but I haven't tested yet. So that's going to be kind of what I'm trying to determine, is if I'm where along that spectrum I am. This is not, language learning is not my full-time job. It's something that I do as a hobby. I have a full-time job and other responsibilities that prevent me from doing anything like that, from being like a full-time language learner. I'm not a language influencer. I make occasional videos on things that I've studied and learned and things that I've found to be effective. And I do have some education. I began and did 1 year of a master's degree in second language acquisition. So it is something that I have a vested interest in, but that did not make me a professional linguist or anything like that. So why do I want to do this particular experiment with the 1,000 hours of Spanish is, I followed Evil Dia's Dreaming Spanish 1,000 journey, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting to watch. Of course, some of that's that he's a charismatic and enjoyable person to listen to. He has, very, charismatic is probably the best way to put it. He's funny. And he's likable, so that made it interesting from that perspective. I don't know that I have that exactly, but I still want to document my process, and maybe somebody else, maybe Evil Dia will do something similar with it. But I admired the spirit, the experiment that he did, and I admired the way that he did it. And I want to discuss how my experiment's different and how my life situation's different, and I feel like what I'm doing is probably more relatable to the majority of people. More people can probably spend 1 to 2 hours a day working on their language, if that, compared to people like Evil Dia or other Dreaming Spanish people that are spending 6, 7 or more hours per day sometimes on languages. I don't have that. So to immerse myself every day in Spanish, I probably have something more like what most people do, 1 to 2 hours per day, which is sustainable and more realistic to the majority of people, something that normal people can actually copy. And that's where I think that there's some benefit in my link experiment and seeing where I'm at 1,000 hours. My hypothesis, I'm halfway there now, and I believe now my Spanish level is much higher than Evil Diaz after 1,000 hours of immersion using Dreaming Spanish. Um, I probably do another video that's kind of like where I'm at right now. That's not this video. This video is just explaining the experiment and how I'm coming to these things. So, why Link? Why am I using Link for this? One, extensive reading, I believe, is a significant part of the learning process, which is very easy to do on Link. I believe that using the audio while reading allows you to have a listening immersive experience, which causes you to connect the listening of the language to visually reading along with the language. So when I do these things, these scripts on Link, I'm not just reading silently. I'm also usually listening to the text and then putting in the definitions for words that I don't know. So both of those are important. I do, however, also do silent reading on Link as well. So it's not just one thing or the other. I do silent reading along with extensive reading and listening at the same time. I save vocabulary from Link, so every time I come across a word that I don't know and click on the meaning, it is like doing a flashcard that you would do on Anki or some kind of flashcard system, except that with Link, I'm getting thousands upon thousands of words every day, and there's no exact rhyme or reason to how or when I get those words, but it's a mass immersion approach compared to Anki, which is isolating a certain set of vocabulary. So it also is nice because it allows me to import my own content. So I'm importing content from ChatGPT for the most part. I'm reading the Gospel of Luke, which I'm getting from a ChatGPT translation that it's making for me. I don't necessarily recommend you do that per se, but it makes it in a way that's easy to follow, and that's not the only place I read scripture from, but it's obviously a place that I'm doing it right now. And then I have it doing a novel called Las Calles de San Juan, which is like the streets of San Juan. It's a detective novel, so I kind of did that because I wanted to have police vocabulary, but in a detective novel that's more enjoyable to listen to. I'm not quite at the level where I can read Sherlock Holmes or something like that really easily. That would be fun to listen to and read along with. But so the book that ChatGPT is producing for me is at that upper B1, lower B2 level, and I put that in the text. I requested that when I asked it to produce the novel. So it's beneficial in that way. It's like having a graded reader. So I'm uploading that chapter by chapter to Link and reading along with it. I'm also doing daily monologues, which are journal entries. So I'm not doing the journal entry. I asked ChatGPT to take someone that is visiting San Juan or visiting Puerto Rico and around the areas around San Juan, and to have them do a journal entry that's maybe about 2 to 3 minutes in length. And so they are talking about their day, what they did. So it has past tense vocabulary, what they're doing right now and what they plan to do tomorrow. So it's a daily journal entry where I'm getting past, present, and future tense about the experiences of someone living in Puerto Rico or visiting Puerto Rico and what they did for the day. Each day changes. The person in my hypothetical monologue situation, journal entry, is working. They're in San Juan, so they're meeting people, and I just get to read those every day. So I read one of those, I listen to it, and then I read it out loud, and then I listen to it, and then I read it out loud again, and then I usually listen to it a third time, and then I move on. So I'm getting repetitive vocabulary that way. So those are the things that I'm doing. Those are the content that I have. So it is comprehensible. It has the I+1 theory, that if you've studied Stephen Krashen, that means that there's a set of information that you know, but it has only slightly more. That's the +1, is that there's something about the vocabulary, something about the text that you don't quite understand. So it's only slightly above my level. Maybe about 10% of the vocabulary that's in it is vocabulary that I don't know automatically. Like, I recognize it, but I have to look up the words. And only about 2 to 4% of the vocabulary is vocabulary I've never seen in LingQ before. So, obviously when I started LingQ, 100% of the vocabulary in it was vocabulary I hadn't seen before. So I only learned things like greetings and salutations and small interactions between people, and I built on my vocabulary from there. So not all of my learning's been in LingQ. So I think LingQ currently has, I think I wrote down some of the recorded hours down here. So I'll go over that in a second. But so what then counts as studying? As far as LingQ goes, the things that counts, or that I'll be counting for the purpose of this experiment, includes the reading, the listening, which sometimes they're together, as I've already kind of mentioned. And then those are coming from the books and courses that I'm getting from ChatGPT. I may even include some grammar areas a couple times per week, which I think is also a good idea to do. Outside of LingQ, the sources that I'm getting is primarily ChatGPT, but I also do some like speaking and shadowing with AI. I'll have to input that into LingQ going forward. Then also, the Bible reading, that's in LingQ, so I'm already counting that. But I also upload podcasts and YouTubes and other audiobooks to LingQ, and I do that in. So most of this is inside of LingQ, even if the source is coming from somewhere else like YouTube. The only thing that I may not count exactly is that I do have to do interactions with people on a weekly basis. So at least once a week, I have a 5 to 10 minute conversation with a Spanish speaking person who's trying to make a police report. And then I end up having to, do some interaction in Spanish with that. So I probably won't count that into this, and I do think that's important, but it's just not easily trackable. And it's not something that time-wise is applicable here. So 5 to 10 minutes interacting with somebody in Spanish has a good impact, more than 5 to 10 minutes of reading a novel. Now, do I learn as much vocabulary with that? Probably not, but it is good practice though, I think still. So where I'm starting is not from level 0. When I think when Evil Dia did his experiment, he really wasn't either, because he already spoke, I forget what the language is called, Esperanto. He already was a fluent, according to him, Esperanto speaker, and I believe he probably was. But if he was fluent, that's not starting from 0 at Spanish, since a lot of the vocabulary and aspects of Esperanto come from Spanish. So he was not actually starting at 0 either. And if you watched his update video at 1,000 hours, I don't really think he made it as far as like the Dreaming Spanish enthusiast crowd would like to have seen. Like it did not respond well to those people. They were very critical of it, but I think his review was good. I think it was accurate. I think that doing immersion, where you're just watching videos and watching television, is not a particularly, I don't know exactly the right English word. It's not a very productive use of your time. I think it's good. Like, I do think you should do it, but I don't think it should make up the majority or even like a remarkably high amount of your study. I think most of your study should become from reading and listening together at that I+1 level. And I don't know that the Dreaming Spanish always does that. I think that they try to emphasize the I+1, where it's only slightly above your current level, but there's no real easy way for them to do that. And the people that I think have relied exclusively on Dreaming Spanish have not actually gotten very good results. So the people that have gotten good results on it, I I think they usually downplay it, but they usually have previous experience with Spanish and studying of Spanish. So I don't think that's unimportant. I think that that's a significant reason. So where I'm starting with my current level is that I currently have 262 hours of recorded study time within LingQ, along with 511,000 plus words of reading and 105 hours of listening. Those numbers only represent what I've done in LingQ. I'm estimating based on normal times that I spent over the past year in language study, where I was studying multiple languages at the same time. I have about an extra 250 hours that I have to add to that. So I'm already over the 500-hour mark as far as studying of Spanish. And those came from, videos I've made where I kind of showed you what I was doing in previous videos. I was using ChatGPT to create interlinear text and doing interlinear reading, and then using 11 Labs or 11 Reader to generate the audio for those so that I could read along with them as well. So there's, again, the same thing that I'm doing in LingQ right now with listening and reading, except it was a little bit more labor intensive because of having to have it generate the text each time. As far as ChatGPT goes, I'm still having it generate a text. It's just I don't have to have it generated as an interlinear version of it. I can just generate it, upload it to LingQ, and it is a simpler process because of that. There's also extra reading that I've done, and I have no way of easily determining that except for trying to gauge my time reading, the time that I spent, the 250 hours, since most of that came from reading. If I could determine my words per minute of reading for that, then maybe I could hypothesize the amount of words that I've read, but there's no easy way to do that, is all I'm saying. So I'm just basing this on time. I have over 500,000 words that I've read. I probably will get to about 1.5 million words of reading by the time I reach the end of this experiment, which I think probably will put me at a pretty decent level. But it's going to take longer because I only have 1 to 2 hours to spend per day. So the way that I'll be tracking this is based on the metrics that are in LingQ, which gives me total hours, words read, listening hours, and known words, speaking words, that kind of thing. So I'll be using that to determine kind of where I'm at now, which I'll post as, again, I will post those things as screenshots as its own separate post on YouTube. And then I imagine that I may not be like native level fluent by the time I finish this, but my ability to speak, I think, will be at a very high level, aside from my level of comprehension, which will probably be, near, I don't know about near like native level for like an educated Spanish speaker, but say somebody that has just, maybe they're in high school and they've not completed high school yet, that would, that's going to be my goal anyway. So I'll be traveling through Puerto Rico during this time. I will not have reached this level by then, but I think reaching an upper B2 or lower C1 level is realistic within 1,000 hours or the next 500 hours through using LingQ. Whereas, not to shun Dreaming Spanish, I think it is a useful source of information. If I were going to use it, if I had an account, and I may get an account to Dreaming Spanish, but I would be using the information and the videos to upload into my LingQ account and reading along with them while they're doing it, and then shadowing it out loud as well. Those are all things that I do with LingQ now, and I don't know that I'll use Dreaming Spanish. I just saying that I don't think Dreaming Spanish is a bad resource. I just think that using Dreaming Spanish only as a viewing tool where you're watching videos and expecting that to translate into you being a speaker of Spanish, I don't agree with some of the things in their roadmap. I've not found that to be accurate, and I don't think it's consistent with previous linguistic research at all. Some of these things, like people will often cite Stephen Krashen. I don't agree with everything Stephen Krashen says either, but the things that they're noting about Stephen Krashen, he does not teach those things or advocate for like something that's exactly like the Dreaming Spanish method either. So when people quote him and cite him as a source for why they do what they do, and then do something that's not consistent with what he would suggest as being beneficial, is kind of intellectually dishonest, I think. And I don't know that the people that run, like Pablo from Dreaming Spanish, is dishonest, because a lot of these things are not coming from him. But there's a lot of Dreaming Spanish enthusiasts, and I think they use manipulative ways to support their enthusiasm for the product that isn't necessarily what it advocates. But it does talk about the 1,000-hour mark, and it gives a level that it believes that you should be at 1,000 hours. And unless people have previous experience in studying Spanish, I've not really seen a lot of people come anywhere near where they say that you should be. So I think that's, a fair criticism of the product. So I will be discussing every 100 hours where I'm at. So currently I'm at around 260 hours. I'll probably do a 300-hour update just so that I hit, the mark. And then I'll have to add 250 hours to that, to where I'm really at as far as the time period goes. So I want to be as honest as possible, and that I have experience with this outside of LingQ. That be what it is. It doesn't make it quite as easy and clear cut to say where I'm at as far as my time goes. I'm estimating and hypothesizing on that. But so my learning philosophy is that it's a heavy emphasis on input. So that is consistent with what Dreaming Spanish recommends, and a lot of they're getting from linguistic influencers and researchers. I don't know that Stephen Krashen is a researcher exactly, but he did compile a lot of studies, and he had a theory that he based off other people's research, and it does highly value the aspect of input in the language. So that includes reading every day, listening every day, very little memorization as far as like isolated vocabulary goes, but speaking enough to activate what I'm learning. That's not part of the Dreaming Spanish method. So no obsession with perfect grammar or anything like that. That would be consistent with Dreaming Spanish. But overall, the idea is consistency over intensity. But it is more intense than just sitting and watching videos without having, actual input or work on your own. I believe that work that you're doing by reading yourself and by following along with the text yourself while listening to someone else read it is more beneficial than watching a video without having to do those things. One, the Dreaming Spanish method allows you to mindlessly follow without necessarily being activated in the input that you're getting, whereas the LingQ method that I'm kind of doing for this experiment requires one to be activated and engaged in the reading and listening process in order to follow along with the text. So especially when I read out loud. So the monologues that I mentioned, I read those out loud. So it requires you to be very activated in what you're doing. And I think that has a far better result than being inactive and passively listening. So active listening and reading versus passive listening only. Obviously, I believe that the active is going to lead to better results than someone who's spending their time only passively listening. So I already know that there's probably some people that would be like Dreaming Spanish enthusiasts that may have some skepticism or disagreements with the things that I say. So can someone learn Spanish from zero, or can LingQ take someone from roughly B1 to an advanced level of proficiency? And that's kind of what this experiment's intended to do. That's valuable because many learners will plateau around that B1 level and they never really reach above it. And I think that this is a way to show that whether that's going to happen or not. I can't say that it will happen because, I've not done it yet. But at the end of this 1,000 hours, which again will probably, it's going to be another 500 hours before I get there. And that may take about a year because I'm only spending, like I said, 1 to 2 hours a day. It's not multiple hours every day. It's, only 1 to 2 hours per day. So I invite you guys to join along. If you've done something similar or you have different experiences, please say in the description box below or in the comment section below what you've done. Have you used LingQ? Have you used Dreaming Spanish? What are your opinions on this, and what are your ideas? This, like most things, this is not a sprint. It's probably something that will take time, and it'll see kind of where you are after marinating for over a year versus like Evil Dia's Dreaming Spanish experiment, where it was a sprint to the 1,000-hour mark. So that's kind of where I'm at. I wish you guys the best. I look forward to getting back to you every maybe 100 hours or so to see. I will be posting those updates on my current stats and where I'm at and exactly what level I'm at. The end of the experiment will be me gauging like a test, and then also just my thoughts and feelings on it. So both are I think important. So you guys take it easy, and I will talk to you in a language video in the not too distant future.